song because they're very simple, they're very meaningful, and we say welcome to our Facebook community that is joining us this morning. Welcome to the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living. And I'd like to put, I say this morning because it's actually morning where I am. And yet, if we really think about it, it's always morning someplace on the planet. And so whatever time you're viewing this, that's what I love about technology. It allows our services to really be non-local so that you can watch them whenever it's convenient for you. So this morning, our topic is about surrender. And here we find ourselves in December. Our theme for this month is the journey of becoming. The journey of becoming. We're opening ourselves to being something greater, to having a greater experience of life than what we have had. And so our talk this morning is surrender into action. And sometimes when we hear the word surrender, it may conjure up this idea of letting go or releasing or giving up something that we have strived for. And that isn't always necessarily the case. And so if I can set the tone for this monthly theme, we recognize that here we are at the end of 2021. This year is coming to an end. And we know it's simply the beginning of another cycle and another year. And we're grateful for where we are. The upcoming winter solstice is a time for stillness. It allows us a few days to pause between the dwindling light and the lengthening of the days that follow. And of course, our brothers and sisters that live in the southern hemisphere are experiencing the exact opposite. As we begin to lengthen, begins to shrink. It's amazing how the universe just keeps everything in perfect harmony and balance. This time of the solstice, this time of stillness allows us, it invites us to sit and be with ourselves right where we are. We don't have to go anyplace. We just be with ourselves right where we are. And to listen to the still small voice within that invites us into the mystery. I remember a long time ago, I heard this phrase that life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. And so we're invited into the mystery, and surrendering becomes an action verb, and it requires a conscious choice to move from control into relaxing into the order of the divine. We relax into the order of the divine by surrendering and moving away from chaos into order. Surrender invites us to let go of any sense of separation and enter into a state of conscious recognition of our union with Spirit in me and as me, the oneness of Spirit, my self-expression as an individualized expression of Spirit. We surrender to the presence and the power of divine love within, where anything is possible. Remember, there's a phrase in the 40-day prosperity plan in one of the principles that talks about having no unfulfilled needs or expectations. And so when we open ourselves to the presence and the power of the divine love within, anything is possible. And everything is possible. We listen for and surrender to our inner guidance and receive exactly what we need. With our faith, instead of questioning and resisting, we take this powerful and healing action into the world beyond ourselves. We surrender to this authentic moment as a way of living. And the greater circumference of our circle widens and allows us to really be co-creators in a world that works for everyone exactly where they are. This call of surrender is to serve humanity and the greater good. It's an invitation to practice the principles of oneness, love, creation, and becoming aware of the experience of the one infinite reality. And I offer these illustrations of surrender. The first one is personal control. And we ask the question, or I ask myself the question quite often, what do I have control over? What do I have control over? I have control over me, sometimes. I think I do. And yet we know that sometimes we're driven by fear when we choose to try and control something or someone else. It's that fear of letting go and surrendering and recognizing that my way is not always the right way. It is a way, not the only way. In our attempt to control something or someone else, we shift the awareness from the presence within to ego. And ego in this context is edging God out. And so we surrender this personal control. We surrender having control, and we go within knowing that everything is provided. The second illustration is to let the universal presence appear more deeply. And what this means is that whatever we call it, whether it's divine truth, whether it's love, whether it's God, there must be a willingness to sit still long enough to wait, to move away from the surface of our mind and life activities, to be still, to listen, and to hear the voice of Spirit expressing within. And that third illustration is to live from faith. When we surrender to the awareness of our divinity or essential nature, it is to naturally follow that inner guidance more and more. Faith can be trusted. Faith can be trusted. We practice moving from action. We practice moving into action with the truth within. Now, I want to offer this example of, for me, it spoke to our faith in times of what some may determine to be a crisis. And this is actually an interview with Michael J. Fox that appeared in an issue of the AARP magazine. And I'm just going to highlight some of that for us this morning. The caption of the article is, "Despite living with the trying progressive Parkinson's disease, the 60-year-old is still optimistic." Can you believe that Michael is 60 years old? Where does that put me? Nah, I'm not going to talk about, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. He says, "I'm kind of a freak. It's weird that I've done as well as I have for as long as I have." The actor opens up about his Parkinson's diagnosis that has forced him to end his acting career for good because of memory loss and because of progressive speech loss. However, he stays positive, and the impact of the diagnosis from the impact of the diagnosis that it has on his everyday life. Diagnosed 30 years ago, the doctor told him at that time that he only had 10 years left to act. And here he is 30 years later after the diagnosis. He's fought hard to continue his acting career, but decided that it was time to step back because the disease was impacting his memory and his speech. Fox has taken this diagnosis with optimism and grace. And when asked in the interview how he was feeling about it, he responded, "Above average for a brain-damaged man." his family and his friends comment on his unmitigating positivity despite the disease and its side effects. His wife Tracy says, I sometimes underestimate the power of his optimism. And this for me is evidence of faith. He's determined to continue to move forward. His publicist writes this: his stamina is phenomenal. He's found ways to shift the focus from what he has, he has found a way to focus his emphasis on what he does have rather than what he doesn't have. And I think this is a key for us, is to remember what it is that we do have rather than what we don't have. Because when we focus on what we do have, that has a tendency to increase and bring more into our lives. As I write my last book, I am now out of the lemonade business, Fox says. Despite many setbacks, he maintains that he's been lucky through his life and career. He doesn't take for granted the privilege that he has to be able to continue acting for 30 years with the diagnosis, even though some days are better than others. It's hard to explain to people how lucky I am because I have Parkinson's. Some days are a struggle. Some days are more difficult than others. On any one given day, I'm a ship on a stormy sea on the brightest of days. The disease is this thing that has been attached to my life. It isn't the driver. It's attached to my life, but it isn't the driver. Think about that for a moment. A diagnosis that has a physical impact may be attached to our lives, but it is not the driver of our lives. I have access to things that others don't. I wouldn't begin to compare my experience to what a working guy who gets Parkinson's and has to quit his job and find a new way to live. So I am really lucky. In all things, give thanks. Look for the blessings that we have in all things. Fox's fans living with Parkinson's or caring for loved ones who are battling this disease, this is what he says. Have an active life. Do not let yourself get so isolated and marginalized. You can live with it. You need to exercise and be in shape and eat well. If you can't drive, find a way to get around. Maintain friendships. And in alignment with this, there are two really great articles that I've read in this month's issue of the Science of Mind magazine. And the first one is an article about Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese monk who has been named the Science of Mind spiritual hero for 2021. And the article is entitled Apostle of Peace and Nonviolence. And what really inspired me about this article is the opening statement from Thich Nhat Hanh himself, which says, meditation is to have time to look deeply, to listen deeply, and when you do that, you can get in touch with your true nature and release all fear and discrimination. And then the other article that resonated with me also is by one of our upcoming New Gen participants. New Gen is a program that Centers for Spiritual Living has for, I think it's for individuals who are under 30. No, maybe I think it's under 35. And it's a financial support for those young men and young women who are going into ministry. And there's a phenomenal group of young people that are a part of this, and I have the honor of knowing a couple of them. And we have a surprise for you in January. One of them will be our guest speaker. This particular article is by Jeffon Seeley, and the title is Continued Ascension. And he explores this question, who am I? And he begins it by saying, sitting in the sacredness of this moment, gazing out the window, my mind quiets and my inner eyes begin to see. And so these are examples of going within, being in tune with the indwelling presence, surrendering and letting go of this idea that I have to be in control. Everything has to flow through me, or otherwise it does not happen. How limiting and how draining is that? Sometimes we find ourselves just extremely exhausted at the end of the day because we have been driven to make sure that things get done the right way, without recognizing that there is more than one right way for something to occur. And so as we wrap this up this morning, a reminder from the spiritual teachings of Science of Mind that support this idea of surrender. From our textbook on page 405, Dr. Holmes writes this: love alone can overcome fear because love surrenders itself to the object of its adoration. Love can overcome fear because love surrenders itself to the object of its adoration. The soul must make a complete surrender of itself to the Spirit. And then also from the Bible in Psalms 46 and 10 says, be still and know that I am God. And in our teachings, in our Science of Mind teachings, we expanded this to the recognition of our oneness with Spirit and add, we are individualized expressions of God. So it is be still and know that I am God. And the I am presence is reflecting itself through me as an individualized expression of itself. Saying and thinking and affirming these is a starting point. In the stillness, out of the stillness emerges our call to action and our call to be and then do. And so in surrender, it may feel sometimes that life is a struggle, but we remember to infuse our being with light and compassion. Most importantly, smile. And so I know we have our mask on for our social, I don't like social distancing. It's the physical distancing that I don't like, the social distancing. But I invite you, just smile. Even though you have the mask on, allow the eyes to smile. And those of you who are in our Zoom family this morning, look across the screen, just scroll across the screen and just offer a smile to someone that is in what we often refer to as our Hollywood squares. Our Zoom community has become our Hollywood squares. And so I offer this week for our journal and reflection questions that are based on today's topic, the following questions. Where do you hold the reins too tightly? Where do you hold the reins too tightly? And here's a little hint. Where or when do you or I complain or suffer on a regular basis? Question number 2. Can you feel the difference between the voice of fear, which is the ego, and the voice of love, which is the heart? Can you choose the highest and best more deliberately as your service to the world? We're always elevating our awareness of the truth of spirit that is leading us to that which is the highest and best for our good and also the good of everyone that is involved. And then question number 3, what blocks you from being still? What blocks us? The body. The body sometimes needs the stillness. It needs the resting point. And what blocks us from being silent? The stillness of the mind more often. Meditation is the most powerful spiritual practice. And so our affirmation for this week is, I lay all burdens on the altar of divine love. And I invite us to say this together. I lay all burdens on the altar of divine love. Let us turn within and pray. And as we move into prayer, I am just guided this morning to invite all of us in our sacred time, in that special time of connection with Spirit, to really intensify our prayer for our country, and more specifically, our prayer for our children. I read recently that at a local school here in Monterey County, a PE coach made a comment that he wished he had a gun so that he could have the students run faster. And that has created an uproar within the community because the children are, I think just this week, we've had 2 incidences of gun violence in our schools. And so let us bring our attention to those that are hurting, those who are crying out for help and don't know how to ask or don't have the resources to connect them with that places and with those individuals that can be that conscious awareness. We, as people of faith, can lift the consciousness. We can lift the awareness of the preciousness and the allness of life. And so in this recognition of the oneness, the all-prevailing presence of Spirit, I know that I am one with this life, and that each one that is gathered here in our physical sanctuary and those who are joining us via Zoom, via Facebook, via other means of technology, each one is an individualized expression of Spirit. And this is true for all of mankind. The scripture says, let everything that has breath be aware of the presence, the indwelling presence of God, and give thanks for this indwelling presence. And so I speak my word this morning for the healing of our nation, for the healing of our planet, for a recognition and an awareness and appreciation for the oneness of all life. And that for those who are hurting, those who are experiencing what has been labeled as mental illness or other physical diagnoses, and knowing that the healing power and presence of Spirit is that balm in Gilead that heals all that requires to be healing. And in fact, in our teaching, in our Science of Mind teaching, Dr. Holmes says, there is nothing to be healed, only the truth to be revealed. And so as revealers of truth, I am calling forth the highest and best qualities of each individual expression on the planet right here and right now, knowing that there is a place at the table, that everyone is welcome at the table of grace, of love, of compassion, of lightness of being, that we are all one with Spirit. Blessing our center, the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living, and blessing spiritual communities wherever they are, whatever identity they are known as, knowing that all paths lead to the source of all that there is. In the beginning was Source. In the beginning was Source. And the Source continues through infinity. And so for this, and for so much more, I give thanks. Releasing this word into the law, which always says yes, I just allow it to be so. And I invite you to affirm this with me as we say together, and so it is. Let's take a breath. Let's just take a nice deep breath and release all of that. And as we prepare now for our time of gracious giving, for our participation in the circulation of the abundant flow, I want to take this opportunity to thank those who have contributed to our annual Santa project for 2021. We have done the shopping and the gifts are here in the sanctuary. And maybe at the end of service, we can show our Zoom family what some of the items look like. And we're also inviting those in the sanctuary. We have two things going on. It's going to be interesting to see how this works, and I know it will. We have round the table with myself for our casual conversation, and Denise has invited us also to support and assist with the wrapping of the Christmas gifts for our Santa project. So I know we'll work it out. We're flexible, we're in the flow. Next week we'll wrap? Okay, that works. See, it's done. Ask and it is given. Ask and it is given. And let us now share our abundance statement together. I recognize the presence of God within as the source of my abundance. Thing I could desire in life. Gratitude and thanksgiving, I now participate in the flow of inner abundance. And again, we have reminders on our screen of the ways that you can financially support our center by mailing in your donation. The address is on your screen. You may text to give, and that number is on the screen, 831-246-9694. And you may also donate through our secure website at montereycsl.org. And your donations are tax deductible to the extent that is allowed by law. And I want to put in a little plug now for year end. I know there are many sources and resources that you can donate to. And people are looking for a tax write-off at the end of the year. So we ask you to consider the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living as one of the places that you make your year-end donation to, knowing that the resources that are provided for us support us with our outreach projects to make a difference in the world and to present ourselves as a place of vitality and spiritual connection, where everyone is welcome, where there is no dogma, there are no thou shalts and thou shalt nots. We welcome each one as they are, knowing that each one is an expression of the divine. And so as we begin to say good morning to our Facebook family, invite you to return next week as we continue with our December theme, The Journey of Becoming, and our talk will be The Joy of Becoming. And so we say thank you and God bless you and we love you, and we will see you the next time on Facebook.